This episode of the Major Issues Podcast is brought to you by patreon.com/CBC Clubhouse. Comic Book Clique is on Patreon, guys. For as little as 10 cents a day or $3 a month, not only can you help keep the lights on here at Comic Book Clique headquarters, but your donation gives you access to exclusive content like CBC commentaries, polls where you can choose what content we cover next, and special behind-the-scenes footage of things here at Comic Book Clique. Visit patreon.com/CBC Clubhouse today and become a Patreon. And remember, you, yes you, are worthy. Hello, everybody out there in comic book land. My name is George Serrano, aka The Don, and if you're listening to this, you can only be here for one reason, and it's a brand new episode of the Major Issues Podcast, brought to you by ComicBookClique.com. And as always, I am never alone. Sir, can you please introduce yourself?
I am Dan, the comic book man, and I'm the right one this time.
Yeah, you come back from your original foray
I had some
last week.
to do, just a little bit of lamenting to do.
Yeah, some would say that's a waste of time, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to celebrate, bro. It's 55 years of an anniversary of sorts of all things to cover this week on the Major Issues Podcast, with all of the hubbub being brought about the Batman and the Flash, and whether Spider-Man are going to come out of multiversal madness and all that. We decided to cover something a little softer, something a little more camp, if you will. We're celebrating the 55-year anniversary of the release of Batman the movie, the 1966 version, basically a long version of the Adam West Batman TV show. At least that's what it felt like. But
yeah, it's like an adaptation in a sense, like
like Pokemon the movie.
Episodes. Yeah, it's like a Pokemon the movie of the sorts.
Yeah, 100%. Now, prior to this assignment, if you will, Dan, the comic book man, what did you know about the Adam West Batman? What was your background with this character, or just that universe in general?
I guess it's so deepened inside pop culture that there's no way, even if you didn't watch one episode, there's no way you know nothing of that. Holy gee Willikers Batman, stuff like the questions, slangs like that. Or you know how Joker's like, ooh, like, there's just so much there. Like watching Fairly Odd Parents, for example, Timmy Turner was very much so into the Adam West Batman in a sense. Like they even brought in voice actor Adam West,
like
to play a fictional version of himself. Same thing for Family Guy. Adam West played a fictional version of himself in Family Guy as the mayor. Yeah,
and he was kind of talking in his Batman voice, I guess, if you will, the weird stilted dialogue, very Jeff Goldblum-esque. I guess he predates Mr. Goldblum with the stunted dialogue, but I would say the same. I knew about the pow, zip, and zap kind of like punches and stuff when they did fight scenes. I was aware of the outfit. I've seen the outfit. I've seen the Bat Tootsie scene of Batman kind of, grooving down, all that stuff. All the stuff filmed in the back lot with them running or them in a vehicle I've seen before. And like you said, it's been parodied over and over and over again, to the point that I wondered in watching this if it would just feel like one big nostalgia parody thing. But actually, I think this is like the best version of that, right? Like because this is the one that got aped the most. It just reminds you that this was the start of this.
Truly, at this point in time, you had George Reeves' black and white Superman, but that was much more of a grounded, 60s type drama. Like they had their fair share of like campiness, but they really tried their hardest on that. Like if you've seen Hollywoodland, they really tried hard to make a very authentic Superman show in that time. So really, this was all we had for camp. This is camp. This was the birth of campy. Not only is this the birth of campy, it's the Hall of Famer. It's the man. Like,
yeah.
And I was watching this, and there was so many artistic choices that I couldn't help but just love. Like, you can understand its place in certain people's hearts. Like I know people that this is like their favorite superhero movie.
Right.
Like, and you know, grown men obviously in like their 50s and 60s, but this is their favorite like superhero movie, their favorite superhero, their favorite version. And you can see that they really tried to like do something cool here.
Yeah, it definitely deserves its own place in the Batman mythos, and it would go on to change things in comics. This version of Batman and Robin would make a return later on in animation years after this show was over. But
yeah, Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, the main idea though is this film, this 1966 film, Batman the movie, based on the Batman television series. It's actually the first full-length theatrical adaptation of Batman.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Because
there was an actual like a 3 to 6 hour serialized theater release of Batman in like the 40s. It was black and white.
But it would be by chapters, right? Like it would be serialized. It would be like binging a show.
Yes,
in a theater versus
you watch 1.5 hours of this, and you got to
go back a season of right. So
yeah.
Usually those serials like are cut just under the amount of time that would make them a feature film. Like I heard Dumbo. Yes. Dumbo just barely made it at the line of feature film. And I think that movie is like 70 minutes long or something.
It's like 78 minutes. It's like an hour, 8 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. So it might.
You're at 70 minutes. Like that's probably because that's an hour, 10 minutes. So you're at like just the cusp of feature. Okay. So this, I guess, feature length wise, but I wouldn't say this is the first theatrical release.
No, full length.
Because if you could go to the theaters 20 years prior and see a take on Batman, this definitely wasn't the first theatrical. I guess feature length, sure.
Yeah, full length, as at least that's how they designate it here. It was released by 20th Century Fox, and the film starred Adam West as Batman, as we spoke about, Burt Ward as Robin, and it hit theaters 2 months after the last episode of the first season of the TV show. And
that's actually pretty cool. These people got what we get.
Yeah.
Because we just watched WandaVision and Loki, and then we're gonna get Multiverse of Madness and Spider-Man 3. So it's like, damn,
yeah.
They got what we get now.
Wasn't Pokemon the first movie after the first season of Pokemon?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Because the ending of the league was like December of '99.
Yeah, so it definitely makes sense. So it hit theaters 2 months after the last episode of the first season of the TV series, and includes most of the members of the original TV cast, with the exception of Julie Newmar, who played Catwoman in 2 episodes of the season. In the movie, she's replaced by Lee Merryweather. So is Miss Merryweather.
A lot hotter.
I think so too. I didn't want to be gross.
This is the first time I've been able to experience an established character that is established for me for the first time all over again, because I've never seen Leanne Merryweather. I've never seen her take on Catwoman. In fact, if I was to be real honest, I thought they were the same actress. So when I'm reading the wiki and I see that Leanne Merryweather is replacing Julie Newmar, I'm like, let's see what this is about. And then she comes in as the Russian socialite Kitkat. Kitkat.
Right. Like I was always wondering, because I had heard about Julie Newmar playing Catwoman. I heard about Lee Merryweather. I also heard about Eartha Kitt. And I guess, because of several scheduling conflicts and things like that, these actresses were switched out. The Julie Newmar thing we'll talk about in a bit, about what seemingly was the issue with that. But for a little bit more of the background, it had a budget of 1.37 million, and between 1.37 million and 1.5 million. And it grossed 3.9 million in theatrical sales and rentals. So it just broke even, because they did a lot of promotional stuff. And as you've heard before, some of this math is usually double. Like it's to break even at the box office, they have to do double the budget seemingly, because of promotional and all the other expenses that it takes to make a movie and premiere it around the world.
That's why you get those not full-on estimations of like 10 to 25 million, and you have to put it in your head like that 10 million was probably its budget, and like the other 15 million was definitely commercials, merchandising, television spots,
100%,
YouTube ads.
Yeah,
but at least it made its money back.
Of course, And this show took place at a very weird time in comics. We had just gotten hit with the Comics Code Authority. People were saying that comics were rotting kids' minds with sadistic, violent, and homosexual content. It was very weird at the time. So Batman basically got defanged. This is when you get a very kind of what you think about when you think of the Adam West Batman, like the weird villains, the weird themed villains with weird themed gadgets. If you remember, like the very famous cover of Batman in like different rainbow outfits, like those were his adventures in like the 60s, because they couldn't like mention murder. They couldn't, he couldn't kill villains.
I never heard about the Comics Code, the CCA. I remember the first time I heard about it, because it was me looking up the history behind Joker.
Yeah.
And how does someone like the Joker become who he is today in 2021, when my grandfather was reading him literally slap Batman with a fish?
Yeah. Yep.
Like how does one go to the other? How do you go from slapping Batman with a fish to literally gunning down a woman and her child on Christmas?
I think it's an interesting evolution, and I do think that this has a lot to do with that, right? So like in the early 1960s, Ed Graham Productions optioned the television rights to the comic book Batman and planned to do a straightforward juvenile adventure show, much like the Adventures of Superman or the Lone Ranger. East Coast ABC executive Yale Udoff, a Batman fan in his childhood, contacted ABC executives Harv Bennett and Edgar J. Sherrick, who are already considering developing a television series based on a comic strip action hero. And they wanted to do a primetime Batman series that was kind of like The Man from U.N.C.L.E. So they kind of wanted like Bond. They kind of wanted like...
I'm sorry, but that's three different inconsistent tones.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking a studio, Western,
right? Western, British crime, and superhero show.
Right.
That's like three conflicting tones in one. No wonder why this show came out the way it did.
But I guess like the thing from the Western would be like the main character kind of running things against evil, and then you have a little bit of the Bond gadgets and the secret identity stuff with Batman and the all his Bat gadgets or whatever. But yeah, seemingly all these kind of crazy concepts they try to put all together.
What if I pitched you that kind of show? It's like, George, I have an idea for a show. It's like the Lone Ranger meets Man from U.N.C.L.E. with a little bit of the Flash
and James Bond in there. Yeah.
And throw some let's throw some James Bond. Let's give the man a Q. Let's give him a Q, some gadgets.
Well,
a nice Ferrari.
That's what's funny, because once they decided this was going to happen, even though like we just mentioned, it's not a full concept. It's just a bunch of, let's try something like this. They were getting their butts kicked. CBS and I believe NBC were killing them in the ratings with shows like Munsters, Addams Family, stuff like that. So they were looking for their family.
Well, you couldn't beat black and white TV sitcoms in the 60s to 80s. Sitcoms ran TV.
So they're trying to find their version of that. And they give this hodgepodge of an idea to William Dozier and his production company, Greenway Productions. So they're expecting a hip and fun, serious adventure show like we were just talking. But Dozier had never read comics before. And after he read them, he was like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? Like this, none of this makes sense. None of this is good. So the only way to make...
I guess William Dozier's spirit went through Bryan Singer for X-Men then.
Yep. And so he basically is like, the only way to salvage this, the only way to make a show out of what you gave me is to make it kind of campy comedy. And so like Catwoman, Julie Newmar had described the whole vibe of the show. Like the secret of it was playing it very straight. The comment from the head producer was always straight. Don't play it for laughs, because the straighter you play it, the more ridiculous it really is. And I think you get that.
Placed it.
Yeah. And I think you get that. I think that comes off in the series as well. Originally,
I'm glad you told me that bit of trivia, because that honestly makes me respect it more. Because like we said, you have to be some sort of genius to do something on purpose to be bad.
Yeah, you watch this film, and I'm pretty sure you watched the series. And I'm talking as somebody who is, living in the year of our Lord 2021, and you don't really know how much of the comedy is planned. Like if you don't go behind the scenes and stuff like that, you don't know how much of it is just corny comedy on the sake of that. Those were the days, those were the times of that kind of comedy. But a lot of it, like we said, is this like playing it straight. Somebody else had said like the best way to describe camp is everything that is grave, they treat frivolously. and everything that's frivolous they treat like the gravest
which in a
thing of all
sense would
time.
be the birth of parody and satire. You really
Yeah.
think of it.
Yeah, I don't.
Math was a satire on war.
Right.
You know,
I just
same
don't
with
think.
Homer Pyle.
I just don't think the world as a whole had a big enough concept of who Batman was to understand that this was a parody. To the point that there were a great amount of comic book readers who didn't like this version because they were like, this is the version that's getting introduced to people. This is not our Batman. This is not the Batman that I read.
It's also kind of funny if you really think of it. It's like, you know, what kind for what 15, 20 years, what kind of Batman stories do you truly have that this version is the worst version of Batman? Like, this isn't our Batman. What stories were you really reading in 1950 that something like Batman holding a bomb over his head seems out of the realms of possibility? Because if I'm being totally real honest, I feel like this was the original intended Batman post Finger having to leave and everything, and Kane only taking over. Like, I felt like this was Bob Kane's intentions for Batman. I
could definitely at least say that it was the most potent version of the hero you can do with all the restraints of the Comics Code Authority. With all of that coming in. I mean, before then, he was hanging people, he was shooting people. Batman was doing a whole bunch of stuff. And maybe that's the Batman that certain people gravitated towards. Like you, I, only really remember the stories that would come out of the 70s, the 80s, and so on. But I'm assuming that there were some people, just like any holdouts, right? If they were to make Kyle XY, if they would make a Kyle XY movie, right? And they took out everything that you dug about it, but made it more palatable for new people to come in, you would be like, well, why did they ruin this? And other people would be like, well, no one really cared about it in the first place. So why do you care? Yeah. Right. So that's the argument that people were having here. They're like, that's not Batman. What are you doing with it?
I don't think Batman should be using guns. And I've seen some panels of Batman firing guns from like the 50s. And
they had a spy novelist, Eric Ambler, who was supposed to script a TV movie that would eventually launch the series. But he dropped out after learning how campy everything was going to be. He was like, I don't want to do any of this.
Everybody wanted to be a respectable artist in the 60s, apparently. Why is it not now?
Even Stan Lee, like I said, famously, Stan Lee changed his name from Stanley Lieber to Stan Lee because he thought he was going to eventually write the great American novel and didn't want to dirty Stanley Lieber's name by being on comic books. So he created Stan Lee to be his pen name, his stage name in the comic book world, always intending to eventually use Stanley Lieber to write real things. So this is what that world was dealing with at the time.
Oh, Stan Lee, mean that guy that created the Fantastic Four? Yeah, sure. Let's read his book.
Yeah,
I feel where his mindset
was. His novel, yeah. So eventually came down to two sets of screen tests that were filmed. One with Adam West and Burt Ward, and the other with Lyle Wagner and Peter Dale. But eventually, Adam West and Burt Ward would win the roles. What I learned that was kind of interesting is, the show was originally filmed as 1 hour episodes, right? But like when they first premiered the show, it had terrible ratings. So like in a weird marketing, they decided to take the 1 hour episodes, split them into half an hour blocks, put them on opposite nights, and then they would create a cliffhanger by splitting the episode in half.
Wow.
And so
these people had it down for a campy show like this. These people had some real creative eyes.
They were looking for that money. And so like that iconic cliffhanger ending where it's like, will our heroes do this? They're literally just stopping the episode halfway through, showing the villain maniacally laughing, and then just the next episode you come around. Yeah, so they would ask if Batman and Robin would escape, and then they would direct fans to return at the same bat time, same bat.
My God, channel. Is that the inspiration for Dragon Ball Z?
I mean, probably.
I think that's the inspiration for Dragon Ball Z.
Probably. And like you were talking about, like they were really trying to corner the market with this, really trying to find out how much they can squeeze out of it. At their height, this Batman series, swept across America. And like when especially when the series came out, it became a licensing phenomenon. Everything, and you've seen some of this stuff, right? Like lunch boxes, Pez dispensers, toothbrushes, shampoo bottles,
compasses, pens, pencils, toys, Batmobiles.
Yep. And so
Batmobile is probably one of the most highest sold toy in human history. I think more people have bought or owned a Batmobile than they have toothbrushes.
Right? No, I believe that. And the thing is, reportedly around this time when the series came out, Batman would go on to generate over $70 million in merchandise sales.
Jesus Christ.
70 million.
And
Again,
that's 70 million
this film was made for
60s.
1.5 million. This entire film was made. Everyone was paid. All the vehicles, stunts were done for 1.5 million. They made 70 million in the 3-year run of of this show.
So, you know, that little 1 point whatever million that they made back is not even, it's pennies in the grand scheme of things.
That's all it is. That's all it is. The meat and potatoes of this whole thing.
1.5 million?
Yeah.
What?
No, I'm saying the meat and potatoes of this thing is the cast. They're the ones that elevate everything. So let's get into them, especially.
The cast of villains is way better than the cast of heroes, if I'm gonna be real honest.
Let's start with our heroes, though. Let's start off with the man, the myth, the legend, Adam West as Bruce Wayne Batman. We find out that William Dozier cast West as Bruce Wayne after, and his alter ego Batman, because he had saw him perform in a Nestle Quick commercial. And in there, he was like a James Bond kind of spy. And so he saw the commercial and was like, yeah, that's the guy I want.
Oh my God.
Yep. And Burt Ward, formerly known as Burt Jervis, would come on to play Dick Grayson. He was 19 years old when he auditioned for the role. And he started to think like maybe people won't be able to pronounce this Jervis. So he changed his name to Ward, his stage name to Ward, his mother's maiden name. And he changed the spelling of Burt. It was originally Bert to Burt.
His name was Burt Jervis.
Burt Jervis. But
his name. Burt Jervis.
Yeah. And unlike Adam West, he kind of had to perform his own stunts. He was told this was because his costume revealed more of his face. So they couldn't put a stunt double in. That's what they told him. Later on, he discovered that he was getting paid minimum wage. So it was like a Screen Actors Guild loophole about paying stunt doubles.
Before the Screen Actors Guild and all that shit.
Yeah. So they were doing like a loophole by letting him do his own stunts as like a cost-saving method. And he eventually would go on to see the emergency room dozens of times during his time as Robin.
I mean, this dude had to grapple hook up buildings and stuff. Like,
yeah. So one of his trusted catchphrases is "Holy blank Batman," right? He says it a bunch of times in this film, a bunch of times in the series. The final tally of every time he's uttered it is 352 over 120 episodes.
What? That literally that's like double
three
every
times. Three times an episode almost. Yeah. Because that 3 times would be 360 and it was 352. So there was a couple of episodes where he held some restraint, but for the most part, it was 3 times an episode.
My God.
But this is our dynamic duo, bro. You see them for an hour and plus on this film. What do you think? What do you think about them working together? What do you think of Adam West and what do you think of their outfits? What do you think of their crime fighting style?
All right, I'm gonna be straight up honest with you. Adam West, I didn't, because all I've ever seen of Adam West was either when he was really old or cartoons.
Yeah.
So I don't think I've ever seen Adam West in like his 30s.
Mm-hmm.
My man is tanned.
Yeah.
He is tanned as hell.
Yeah, my man's he's Hollywooded out. Man.
Yeah, but yo, what did you just come out of a tanning booth? And then with him in the cowl, the way his jaw is like bulgy under that cowl, he looks like George Clooney to me. I see every time I see like the bottom of his face, my brain just goes to George Clooney's face. I'm like, wow, Clooney looks the most like you.
Yeah.
And I do love that they had a lot more chemistry, it seemed, than Clooney and Chris O'Dowd, or even Kilmer and Chris O'Donnell.
Yeah.
Like these two actually had some real cool chemistry. Like you buy that they're friends, but they are family. Like he looks out, like you can see like the not so much of this is my son, but this is my little buddy. Like, like I watch out for him.
Yeah. I absolutely love how grave he makes everything seem. How serious he is about some of the most ridiculous things. Like Adam West, like the straight face. I couldn't do it. Some of the lines that he says, I'm standing there like, what are you talking about? Like when they're deducing the riddles and stuff.
Oh my God.
None of it makes sense.
C for Catwoman.
Yeah, that's not a clue.
The shark was pulling my leg.
Yeah,
Joker.
like a joke. Joker, and I'm sitting there like, this is ridiculous.
Wherever
But
there's
it's
fish, there's a penguin.
hilarious. It's so hilarious because it happens. They're right. Like in the universe of the show, they're 100% right. Like they're figuring out these clues, but just the ridiculous nature.
No, but what was
of it all.
killing me about that scene was it was literally a close-up. It was holding on that shot. There was no cuts. There was no movement of the camera. It was holding on that shot close up to like the shoulders, and they're just going through every single one. Oh, when there's fish, there's penguin. Oh, but it happened at sea. See, like, why? What are we doing here?
World's greatest detective, bro. World's greatest
detective.
Rumors started to come out that Burt might have gotten a little bit too big for his britches during the time of the show because he was not a veteran actor. So he was starting to feel himself a little bit to the point.
Syndrome.
Yeah, to the point that veteran actor Vincent Price, who was asked to be on the show as Eggman, I want to say is his name. There was a scene in which he was supposed to throw like a handful of eggs at Robin, and the production crew gave him like 24 rotten eggs, and we're like, yeah, just go ahead and use them all. And he's like, what, you guys don't like Burt Ward? And they're like, oh no, we like Burt just fine. Burt just likes himself way more than any of us like him. I'm not here to slander Burt Ward. I wish I was in that role. 19 Batmania, $70 million in merchandise.
Yeah,
I don't know what I would have done.
I'm 19 years old, and there's literally like girls my age walking around with my face on their book bag. Like, are you crazy?
And could you imagine that dichotomy? Right, you almost have a like this actor in Adam West who kind of is probably looking at this property like, I hope this makes money so I can go and do better things. And then you have Burt Ward who's like, I'm just happy that I have this. You understand? I'm happy that I have this, and I'm the king of this.
That's really all you ever need. This, like 55 years later, and it's still iconic.
But one would argue that because of something this iconic, then the actors themselves would go on to be typecast and then not be able to eclipse this phenomenon. And for some actors, if you're one of those people that truly want to do all forms of acting, like, oh, I want to do comedy and horror and superhero movies, then I get it. Being typecasted sucks. But like for someone like me, if I come in and I crush it in the horror movie world, that's all I'm gonna do. Because what else do I have to do? No matter what, one, I'm gonna get a job. I'm probably gonna get top billing, so which means I'm gonna get paid. Yeah.
Like Mike Flanagan never has to make a single comedy, not one romance, not a cartoon, because no matter what, they're still gonna hire him to make horror.
Yeah.
So even if he is a typecasted filmmaker, the man's always he has 2 shows coming out right now. 2 shows.
But I feel like filmmakers have more of an opportunity, right? Because so long as they are able to present a way that they're going to make money, studios, I don't really think care. But actors, like you heard about certain actresses that would end up doing horror films getting typecasted as scream queens, right? That's the reason why they coined that term.
Yep, the scream queen.
Yes, yeah, like you were saying, and you can end up getting Jamie Lee Curtis. You can end up getting stuck in these rotations. Now, to take a little bit of a tangent, I was watching a conversation between 2 veteran wrestlers, Stone Cold Steve Austin and Mick Foley, and they were talking about the Hell in a Cell match with The Undertaker. And Mick Foley was talking about how he used to be annoyed that was the only match that anyone ever asked him about. He's like, I've done so much and I continue to do so much, and it always ends up being about that. But he ended up having a moment of clarity and realizing that match would go on to live longer than him and Undertaker ever will. And in that solace, he did accomplish what he initially wanted to do, which was create a moment that was going to stay with people the same way he saw Jimmy Snuka jumping off the cage and it stood with him. So I think that eventually, especially as fans started to ironically or unironically embrace this series, like in this era, I think eventually the stars would go on to re-embrace those roles. But I could see how initially 70s, 80s, you're like trying to wash it off of you. You're trying to.
But I mean, also in those times, you really didn't have much, like, unless you were in with Paramount and in with Universal. If you were like a relatively unknown or new actor, TV is where you're going to be until you eventually retire. And most people never see the silver screen.
Right.
Most actors and actresses of those days only stood to TV. Look, Julie Newmar wasn't even in the Batman theatrical.
Right. And rumor has it she was. Oh, we can talk about that now. So let's talk about Lee Merryweather as the Catwoman. So, like we said, Julie Newmar up until this point played Catwoman, but she had other commitments at the time and was replaced by Lee Merryweather. According to a bunch of different sources, she was going to be in like this parody of a French novel, and it eventually did not end up getting finished. So she got booked for this. Couldn't do Batman, then didn't do the other film. And anyway, but according to her like biography special, Catwoman: Her Many Lives, Newmar was unable to reprise her role because of a back injury. But yeah, she just scheduling and trying to do this other film and then this stuff. But we do get Lee Merryweather as Catwoman. I think she does fantastic. I think she does a great job in the role. I like that she's constantly purring. Like everyone is just turned up to 20 in this.
Oh yeah, she always has like a black cat around her. She's always meowing and purring.
she has fixed claws on her gloves.
One of the funniest scenes was when we finally get the introduction in the beginning of all four of our main villains. She's holding up like a small black cat, and she's like, eat them.
yeah.
Throws the cat, and they're all in the corner. You have Penguin, Joker, and Riddler in the corner, like, oh, get that cat away from me.
Yeah, three seemingly maniac murderers, all afraid of this black cat. But they cause bad luck, and who knows? Maybe the cat's bad luck is what caused these villains to fail. I think that's just the white cat's
propaganda towards the black cat.
I wouldn't be surprised. You know, Jim Cat rules and all that stuff. But what did you think of Catwoman's, like throughout the history of this character being portrayed, there's always been like a sultry nature of this character, a seduction of Batman, if you will. What do you think of the whole like Catwoman Batman plot in this, where she's like just seducing him to the point of capture?
No, it's literally chef's kiss when there's a scene where they're trying to kidnap Bruce Wayne just to use Bruce. They don't know he's Batman. Yeah. So Kitakata is on that date, and they're literally sitting in the classic dining area with the table, and they're sitting across from each other. And then they're on the couch doing this seductive talk, like, oh man.
And Adam West knows how to turn it on, right? Adam West knows how to turn on that James Bond.
He speaks like this, and he's very
well, Catwoman.
Like, oh my God. Oh, what have you done with the gorgeous Kit Kat?
I'll kill you. I'll rip you limb from limb.
I'll kill you.
I was like, man, he's going hard. We got it. So, there was a whole bunch of hubbub about Henry Cavill in the Justice League and his mustache and not being able to take it off for the sake of that film. But even before that happened, we had our man Cesar Romero refuse to shave his mustache, and so they would just plop a bunch of that white face paint right over it, and he would become the Joker.
Put it more on the lip than anything else.
Yeah, and he would end up becoming the Joker. What do you think of him as the Joker?
Honestly, better than Jared Leto.
That hair is ridiculous. I realized that they're basically just like picking it up and pressing it to like make it like a mane.
It also looks
like a lion's mane
hairline.
I mean, the guy that was a veteran actor, he said he had a blast doing this. He said, because I guess
that's the one thing I know is from my entire life is that Cesar Romero loved every second he got to play the Joker. And that, you know how I feel about that. If you're loving a role, I will never take that away from you. And that's why I will never take Drax away from Batista. If you're truly like, if you're enjoying yourself and you're having fun and every day you're going home with a smile on your face, or when you wake up in the morning, you're like, yes, I get to be Drax again. Or I get to be Joker again. I'll never take that enjoyment away from you, no matter if I don't like it or not.
But and I like him. I like him. I like his little suit. I like his little heeing, hawing. I like that he plays everything so big. His eyes widen. That smile, the laugh.
He brings in the tea for the captain that he's like kidnapping. I'm like, yo, want some tea?
I think my favorite part of the villains was whenever they fought each other. Whenever they would argue with each other, it'd be like, you idiot. That wasn't gonna work. Now what are we supposed to do? I really, really dug that. And I guess maybe that's why people for years have tried to shove as many villains as possible.
If you look at first actual superhero movie to do it.
If you look at the next 3 entries into the Batman film, lexicon, they would go on to use all 4 of these villains in this film because Catwoman and Penguin together were in 2, Joker's in 1, and Riddler's in 3. So,
oh my god! So it's Joker, Penguin, Catwoman, Riddler.
Yeah,
within that's 5 years of the Burton of fucking what's his name, Schumacher Batmans.
Yeah, and now, you can, now that I've seen Frank Gorshin as the Riddler, I almost kind of get Jim Carrey's Riddler a little bit more.
What? No, 100%. I that was straight understandable. What the dude had the question mark suit.
Yeah.
Not the spandex one. I'm talking about when he's regular. He's got this question mark blazer.
The fancy one, the fancy attire, the away attire.
I'm dead at this man. He's like expressionative. He's very much in your face with it. Giddy at times about doing a riddle or something, which I thought was funny. So, what does everybody have? What do you have that everybody uses that you don't use? And he's just he's so excited to say these riddles.
Yeah, he loved it. So he's the one who decided to put like a high-pitched, deranged kind of cackle. He says he's inspired by Tommy Udo in Kiss of Death. I've never seen that.
That makes sense.
He played the Riddler in 10 episodes of the series, as well as the theatrical movie. But this actor named John Astin made 2 appearances in 1967 in the role when he was unavailable. So Gorshin got tight and said, "You know what? I'm not coming back." But then he agreed to come back in the 3rd season when they made like a whole episode around him. So I thought that was pretty interesting there. We have Burgess Meredith as the Penguin. A lot of wah, 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 and pirates. And he has pirates. You see the Penguin, where we get the Penguin themed ship from that eventually returned in Batman Returns. the bird themed nautical ship, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, well, we just needed this dude Burgess to just say, "I'm not a human being.
Yeah, I am an animal." They loved him though. They loved Burgess Meredith. It was so well received, his version of the Penguin, that they always had a script ready whenever he was available to shoot.
If anything, I would sit here and say straight up right now, not just the Batman show, but if these specific 4 villains were never chosen, and these actors and actresses didn't actually bring a level of joy and giddiness to the role, I don't think they will ever have been as big as they are now, because these are technically 4 of the biggest Batman villains in history. Like, you could throw Two-Face in there to make a top 5, but
Two-Face, I think, was supposed to be in this film as well, if I'm not mistaken.
That would have been a little bit too much.
Yeah,
I think 5 villains going against one superhero is a little bit too much. But no, like, it's so crazy how like Catwoman, Penguin, and Joker, Riddler, those are like the Batman villains, the ones that come off the top of your head the most whenever you're thinking of Batman villains. It's always Joker, Catwoman, Riddler.
Now I think about it, although there probably will be a post-credit of some sort, Catwoman, Penguin, and Riddler are also all confirmed for the Batman in 2022. So, yeah.
Oh my God, that's right. Riddler's played by Catwoman by freaking
Zoe Kravitz.
And then it's Colin Farrell is playing Penguin.
Yeah, the Joker. I mean, sorry, the Penguin. Yeah, Cobblepot.
My God, and that they bring in Cameron Mahone from Gotham to be who's going to be this new Joker in Titans.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if they're. I think if I had to guess, they're going to go as far as they can without ever showing this Joker. They did it in season 1. I want to say they had a Joker sighting in season 1 when Trigon had melded all their minds. Remember, Joker beats up Batman, kills him seemingly. Oh no, Batman kills Joker, throws him off a building, and he lands on a cop car, and we only see his body. So I think they're going to go as far as they can with the character without ever actually having to show him.
All 4 of those characters are now being re-brought back in some way.
Yeah, the Penguin and Joker are tied for the most appearances on this show, and Penguin will actually go ahead and have a cameo on an episode of The Monkees. So that's funny.
Oh my God.
When people talk about that laugh, when people talk about the wah, 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 it turns out that laugh was created because Burgess Meredith hated cigarette smoke, but they demanded that this character smoke always keep this cane in his mouth, smoking cigarettes. And so whenever things would get to thing, he would actually like yeah.
Get the hell out of here. That's not a laugh. That's him coughing at the smoke.
Yeah, I think, and then he just would make the sound, and then they just tied it all together. So now he just does it. But yeah,
it would be like,
yeah, you look and you see billows of this cigarette smoke in his mouth, and you can think if he doesn't smoke cigarettes or like to smoke cigarettes, all of this got to be very weird and uncomfortable for him. So I thought that was funny. Alan Napier plays Alfred Pennyworth in this. Another fun fact: Alfred was actually dead in the comics at the time. They had killed him, but the popularity of
that much of a
the popularity of the character would see him end up returning in late 1996 or 1966 again.
Killed off and brought back. Like I think every single character in comics history has been killed at one point and brought back.
Got to make $1 and got to make $1. It's also been said that Alan Napier's name was the inspiration for Jack Napier's Joker in 1989. So there's another little fun fact there.
I can see that my head went when I heard Alan Napier.
Yeah. Neil Hamilton played Commissioner Gordon and played the character in all 120 episodes of Batman. And the last little bat fact, and it's a sad bat fact, is with the death of Adam West on June 9th of 2017, just 4 years ago, Burt Ward is now the only surviving main Batman cast member. Yeah.
He was in Crisis on Infinite Earth back in December of 2019, so that's kind of sad that.
Oh yeah, he was. They did have. He said, "Holy something, Holy red skies" or something, Batman.
Yeah, he was standing in the middle of the street, and all of a sudden, just something passes right by him, and you see big old Burt Ward.
Yeah.
Burt Jervis.
Are you ready to get into this madness of a plot?
Let's get into this madness of sorts.
All right. So, first of all, we get the credit sequence in the beginning was very long, and it was like dedicated to all like the lovers and the dreamers or something like that. I don't know what that was about.
Like every color, different spotlight and stuff like that. That was pretty cool.
Very stylistic. But when a yacht with a scientific invention aboard is in danger, billionaire Bruce Wayne and his ward Dick Grayson don their crime-fighting disguises and get on the case as Batman and Robin, which is my favorite part of this is the instant change lever that they use to turn into Batman and Robin. One of the funniest, like kids would never blink an eye at that. You flip it and it gives you your costume, but adults are like, how does any of this work? It's really, really funny.
I'm a fan of the bust being the entrance to the Batcave.
Yes. And how happy they are to run to the bust, press the button, run to the bookcase
with incredible speed and agility.
Yep.
Our heroes change into.
They use the Batmobile to retrieve the Batcopter. I thought that was a little weird that they had people like set up the Batcopter for them, like turn it on and move it to the airstrip.
Like, how does Batman have air traffic controllers?
Yeah, they were like just ready to get it ready for him. I thought that was a little weird. But yeah, the whole thing is we're gonna drive to the Batcopter, then use the Batcopter to find this yacht that seemingly is going to be in trouble. So they fly through the Batcopter, they get close to the yacht, but suddenly it just disappears. And so they're puzzled. After fending off a shark attack with his bare hands, which we should probably talk about. That was the moment that I first just started to bust out laughing. Seeing Adam West seriously punch a shark in the face repeatedly.
How bad that shark dummy was.
And then the shark falls into the ocean and explodes. None of this makes sense. It reminded me of you were talking about Dark Place earlier. It reminds me of that, like when he just jumps and the ambulance explodes. Like it doesn't really matter. It just looks cool.
With shotguns.
Yeah, this is also where you get that very famous joke of the shark repellent that I think has been parodied in everything at this point.
Well, there is not one instance where that shark repellent hasn't been brought up.
Because it's the height of absurd Batman gadgets. Like, why would you always have that on you? I mean, seemingly it's useful, like in this moment.
Called oceanic repellent. It's oceanic repellent. That was the name of it. They go and they had like a whole clip, like a bunch of ocean repellent.
Yep, and he just sprays it in the shark's face, and then it this is not even the only exploding water animal in this film. We'll get to that later. An off camera murder of a porpoise, if you will. But they get away from the shark, and the world's greatest detective and his boy Wonder hold a press conference denying the disappearing yacht and the exploding shark, so they don't worry the public. Once the dynamic duo is alone with Commissioner Gordon, they deduce that it was all a plot by the United Underworld to lure Batman into some sort of trap. While Batman doesn't know why, he suspects that the ship's Commodore Schmidtlap, I kept thinking of Schmitty's, Commodore Schmidtlap is in trouble, and if he is indeed being targeted by the Underground, he's being targeted by the Penguin, Joker, Riddler, and Catwoman. Speaking of which, Penguin, Joker, Riddler meet Catwoman and discuss the next level of their plan, and it is revealed that they're holding Commodore Schmidtlap hostage without him knowing by pretending he's still on a vessel at sea, which was like, that's got to be the dumbest guy in the world, right? They just have like
he was window. So head in the clouds. He's just like, smelling the ocean, just smelling the ocean. Man's head was so in the clouds.
They had to keep giving him tea, and every time he would go, Joker would have to give him the tea, and then he'd be like, "Why? You look sick. Are you getting enough sunlight?" And it's like, "Oh, I'm just down here working all day." It's like terrible, but no one's questioning anything. With him out of the way, they had their hands on his invention, a dehydrator that can turn humans into dust. This was all done incredibly artistically, Dan. I don't know if you noticed, but like scenes shot with these criminals, were filmed at a Dutch angle, and it was intense. I knew you're gonna bring it up. I knew, because I was trying to ignore it. It was intentional though, Dan, because it was meant to show that the four villains were crooked. You understand? It's nuance.
Because they were on a boat, so there was.
I mean, that works as well too. But yeah, nuance. So we have our villains, we have our hero, we have our evil plot, our evil plan. It's all coming together. In the Batcave, and using bleeding edge technology, Batman and Robin learn that the yacht was really a holographic projection coming from a buoy. By bleeding edge technology, it was basically like a big magnifying glass that Batman was like, yeah, I think that's what he's like, it couldn't have moved fast unless it wasn't really
super
there.
Fine bat grade. My man had bat 4K in the 60s.
What is it? Oh my God. What's that trope of select and expand or whatever?
Zoom and enhance.
Zoom and enhance. I said select and expand. That's the off-brand version. But yeah, like zoom and enhance.
Select and expand. I'm gonna start using that. Yep. Select and expand cliche.
Using the Batboat, they head to the site where they saw this projection coming from and are targeted instantly by the United Underworld, who are in a penguin-shaped sub near them. Turns out the Batboat was built especially for the film by the Gastron Boat Company. In exchange for their cooperation, the producers agreed to hold the film's world premiere in Austin, Texas, which is where Gastron has its headquarters. A lot of people shaking hands and making deals in this film.
So much politics for a Batman film.
By the way, when I was taking notes for this, I realized that they got their money's worth out of all the money they put into all these vehicles. Each one of these vehicles has like a 20-minute glamour shot of it, like either going through the air or going through the ocean. And these are all practical, so I could see why. Like all this stuff was dangerous and real. But like, especially when they're in the boat, they're just like glamour shots of it going down while music is playing in the background. They're not doing anything. They're no one saying anything. It's just like, look at this.
That's cool. Was also with the Batcopter.
Yeah, all the vehicles
flying, and you get the
all the vehicles. I felt like they really got their money's worth, so that makes a lot of sense. The villains end up using magnets to keep the dynamic duo stuck on the buoy, and they try to shoot them with torpedoes. Again, this would have been fairly grim, given the circumstances.
Everything about this movie is literally like, oh my God, this is kind of dark. These guys have a device to turn people into dust. They get so dehydrated that they literally just fold within themselves. Yeah, they just decompose from dehydration. That's a real Joker-esque, Penguin-esque fucked up plan.
Yeah. Yeah. So instead, they end up using a radio detonator to destroy two of the missiles. And then there's a third missile coming towards them. It explodes. The villains go to look at the buoy. The heroes are not there. The heroes are instead, I think, back in the bat boat or something. And Robin says something along the lines of like, gee, Batman, I'm so glad that third one didn't hit us. And he's like, yeah, good thing that Porpoise sacrificed himself for it. So seemingly some sort of dolphin creature was killed in sacrifice to save Batman.
One might say he was given a porpoise.
I dig it. I can dig that. That's very fitting for this film here. But
I guess he found his porpoise.
But yeah, he's very serious. Like, good thing he saved our lives, and his sacrifice will not go, unnoticed.
I'm gonna get a tattoo of that dolphin on my arm just to commemorate his memory.
They'd be gone, bro, if it wasn't for that dolphin. They'd be gone. It's like later on where, matter of fact, this happens 2 other times when it comes to explosions. At one point, there's seemingly nowhere for an explosion to happen. And then it just happens off screen. And we're told that Batman has hidden behind some iron rods. So everything's okay. And then they have a crash. Their helicopter crashes, but it lands in a like foam and rubber convention, wholesale convention of all places. And it's always like, good thing, Robin, that this, that happens. It
was the birth of plot armor.
No, but I think it's in that helicopter scene that Adam West is like, the chances of this happening would anger even the best gambler or something. Basically, like, this is a Deus Ex Machina. I know it. It sounds ridiculous, the odds of this happening, but it just did. So what are we going to do about it? Really, really funny stuff. It was around here that I started to worry about Burt Ward because that outfit doesn't look comfortable. Like, he's always got to push around the cape and his little pixie boots.
My concern is how short the shorts are. Now, we are men with male genitalia.
That's true.
And I know my man was chafing.
There's another conspiracy that some, Marshall Langmans out there in the world did try to call in and, talk about the bat bulge, if you will, and how we can reduce it. And other rumors go so far as to say that the actors were given pills to minimize distractions.
I quit.
When it all came down to that.
You're not giving me pills that's gonna kill my erection.
It's all unsubstantiated, or maybe it's in one of their autobiographies. But I thought, like, wow, this is kind of ridiculous.
That's sort of kind of illegal. At least it sounds illegal. That's like telling a woman she has to tape her tits because they're too big and the character needs to be flat chested.
I mean, they could have got ahead of all this, and they could have been the first ones to give him the green tights, like how Tim Drake would eventually end up wearing tights. But to each his own. So after that beautiful sacrifice, we're at the docks, and Batman discovers that Penguin, under the alias of P.N.
Gwyn. Oh yes,
P.N. Gwyn. Acquired the submarine from a Navy surplus admiral.
Are you trying to tell me that you gave a man named P.N. Gwyn a surplus bomb without knowing his address? Or
yeah, and supposedly that was all like Cold War commentary, like how after a while we were both had this surplus of weapons that we're never going to use. It was all for intimidation, and people started to try to make money off of it.
No, that's the Cuban Missile Crisis. Cold War was in the 80s with Russia.
Oh, but it was the same. It's the same concept.
It's the same propaganda, same type of commentary on it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's just like this idea of just frivolously giving away weapons for money. Like that should not be. It's kind of funny
because if I'm not mistaken, 61 is when Kennedy gets elected.
Mm-hmm.
So 62 would be his inauguration. 63 was the Bay of Pigs and the slaughtering on Miami shores from Cuba.
Yes.
Where he basically sends soldiers to Miami, and Cuba was waiting for us and just slaughtered.
According to Wikipedia, the start date of the Cold War is 1967. And one of the events, it ended in 1991. One of the events supposedly that has to do with it is the Berlin Crisis of 1961, which would have just been half a decade before this film. So yeah, there's some ties to just like the idea that they would be doing this parody and commentary.
So America was at a war for 40 years. Jesus.
Yeah, that's why it's cold.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea that they would do this parody and then decide to do like inept social commentary feels kind of funny. But you know. Penguin. Riddler shoots a missile into the sky from submarines, which reveal skywriting, and it's riddles. Again, I don't know why.
You figure them out? Because I never figured it out.
No, I don't think you're meant to figure them out. Even when they figure them out later, I'm like, those are not answers that normal men would get to. That I don't know how your logic got there, but to each his own. And speaking of which,
nobody's better than Val Kilmer at figuring out riddles.
Yeah, Kilmer's no slouch when it comes down to the riddles. Now, I guess the controversial question: where does Adam West Batman fit in your lexicon of film Batman?
Now, if I had to be real honest, I think this might be I'll put him in my top 3. Honestly,
that's bold.
I think this is one of my favorite Batman because if I was to break down, let's use the Socratic method for a second. One, he brings an iconicism to that character. Totally. No matter what our idea and opinion on Adam West's take of that Batman, at the end of the day, you know Adam West was Batman.
Yeah.
Everybody knows who Adam West is Batman. They know the mannerisms and the vocal patterns of how he talked. And I think he gave the character quite a bit of respect.
Yeah.
Because it's not like he came out here, literally making fun of everything. Nobody made fun of anything that had to do with Batman so much as they made it more palatable for family audiences.
Yeah.
So you still get the Caped Crusader fighting crime against, terrible villains. You still get the very smart, capable detective skills. He's still very much of a philanthropist playboy when he's dressed as Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Like he gave this character very much the respect that not only does it deserve, but it needed during the time of Comics Code Authority.
Yeah, I would even go so far as to say, like, one of my favorite versions of Batman is Lego Batman. And that's another Batman property that took a lot of, made a lot of jokes about the mythos, but it came from a place of love. It came from a place of, we love this property so much that we can still acknowledge how absurd some of the elements of this mythos are. And I think this is definitely what that is doing there. So back at Commissioner Gordon's office, Batman, Robin, and Commissioner Gordon and Chief O'Hara solved the riddles in a very weird way. Like I said, none of the answers would have been answers any of us would have guessed, but here we are. They're able to officially confirm Catwoman's involvement with Penguin, Joker, and Riddler, and they realize that they're plotting world domination of some sort. So they go to the Batcave. Meanwhile, the villains decide to have Catwoman disguised as Miss Kitka to lure millionaire genius playboy philanthropist to Bruce Wayne back to her apartment, where they can kidnap them both and then use them as bait for Batman to come and rescue them. Once Batman would arrive, he would then fall prey to a death trap consisting of Joker's Jack in the Box and one of Penguin's exploding octopi. These guys were all about branding, bro. They're all about making sure, especially Penguin.
When they kidnapped Bruce Wayne, they were literally flying off on umbrellas.
Yeah. I like seeing him light his cigar or cigarette with the flame umbrella. That was pretty cool. Even when they're in their headquarters, they have like shelves with just their like accoutrements, all their little gadgets and stuff, and it's very Penguin themed, Joker themed, Catwoman themed, and Riddler themed. So I thought that was funny too. But Miss Kitka visits Bruce Wayne at Wayne Manor, where she confronts him with riddles that were left at her penthouse. She figures that the Riddler might have been behind it and that he might be after her now that she has stumbled upon his master plan. Bruce and Kitka dismiss the riddles and set up a date for the upcoming evening. What I like is that, I still think that Adam West is good at being charming, even in that ridiculous outfit. Lee Merryweather is kind of a hottie, so it totally works with her, like
different Russian outfit was doing it for me.
Da, darling, da, da. That's all they did back in the day.
Da, das be Bruce Wayne.
And very much like a Bond girl kind of thing. Like I said, they're really trying to get this as close to Bond without being Bond as they can.
Which it's funny watching this movie. There's the way my brain works. You know how my rabbit holes work and how my brain goes. There's no way that this movie wasn't taken as inspiration for a lot of parody comedies that we've gotten, especially throughout the 90s and early 2000s. I mean, this movie, there's so much of Austin Powers that reminds me of this.
Yeah, I actually think it's like a Russian nesting doll of sorts, where you have James Bond, and then you have this inside, like kind of making a parody of James Bond and how ridiculous all that kind of stuff can be. And then you have Batman. Batman's making fun of James Bond, and then inside of that, there is like Austin Powers making fun of all of it, if you will. I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like they're all aping off each other in a weird way. They say the 60s were about the 3 Bs: Beatles, Bond, and Batman. And that's what made the most money. That's what people were watching. That's what people were listening to. And for Batman to be up there with those two, look how big Bond is. I mean, look how big Batman is in general now. But yeah, like definitely high status. So yeah, they go to. Oh yeah, Bruce meets up with Robin in the Batcave as Batman, and they solve riddles left at Miss Kitka's house, proving that she is indeed in danger. However, it's all a trick arranged by the villains. Bruce and Kitka go out on a date later that evening, and Alfred and Robin keep close watch from the Batmobile via the micro TV bat scanner. I wonder if like Sharper Image, I wonder if Sharper Image sells some of these things. Did you have a favorite Bat Gadget?
My favorite Bat Gadget, I guess the one to make fun of the most is the superfine bat grain.
Yes. Yeah.
That's because that just caught me out of nowhere. It was when they were discovering the hologram. You get this panning shot of the Batcave, and you just see this TV with a sign that says superfine bat grain. I'm like, bro, this man had 4K and 66. What is going on?
And all his items are labeled, right? They're all labeled like clearly. Like there's all like placards.
Everything. Bat hook, bat toilet paper, bat toothbrush.
Yeah.
But I guess my favorite would be the shark repellent, because it's just the most iconic of Batman's gadgets, to where I think that they've made fun of it. Like actually Batman products. I think they've made fun of it in the Batman world itself.
I'm almost certain they do it in Lego Batman. But what's interesting?
That was where my brain goes to the most. Like I could have sworn that they used that in Lego Batman, or he's used it in some kind of animation against King Shark that like knocks him out or something.
Isn't it funny though, right? That it seemed and deemed outwardly ridiculous, this bat shark repellent, even the bat grain, or what you're talking about from before, the bat hook, the bat scanner, all this stuff, ridiculous, but seemingly all not worse than the bat credit card. Isn't that weird?
Nothing is worse than the bat credit card. Nothing's worse. They've raped my childhood, will you?
Like the bat credit card was, it's undefeated.
Because how does Batman open up a bank account? You need a social security number. You need to sign W-4s.
None of it makes sense.
Like you can't just walk into Chase or JP Morgan with a sack full of cash dressed as Batman. Like, I want to open up an account.
Yeah.
And it was Visa. It was a Visa MasterCard.
They don't just give those out willy-nilly.
You needed proof of income.
Right.
Like you needed proof of address. How do you get a Bat credit card? Who did you buy your own bank?
Right.
Like
none of it makes any sense. It all has to get traced back somewhere. And even though that doesn't make sense, what does make sense is that Robin comes up with kind of a cool plan. He says he's going to flash the bat signal so that it can make it seem like him and Batman are running towards crime, hoping to then set up the situation where these villains kidnap, Katya or Kitka and Kitka and Bruce. Like that's a bit of a smart plan. Robin seems to kind of have his head on straight. What do you think of some of Robin's plans in this film?
Well, if I was being very honest, Robin has always been a capable character that I don't think they've ever written Robin to really be stupid.
Yeah, maybe a little stubborn.
Yeah, maybe a little stubborn, a little headstrong, but they've never wrote Robin to be fully stupid.
Right.
So seeing Burt Ward as the first live action Robin actually being capable, figuring out clues, deducing a crime, I loved this interpretation. This might be my favorite Robin live action. I mean, Brandon Thwaites gets me. Like, I love Brandon Thwaites. But damn, was Burt Ward really giving me the feel? Like, if anybody was giving me more so feels of the comics of that era, it was Burt Ward as Robin. That really felt like a comic book come to life.
Yeah, and like even when you say like all this stuff with Brendan Thwaites, like we don't even really get to see him and his him and Batman interact all that much. So you're definitely getting the Caped Crusader and the Boy Wonder together, the dynamic duo in this. And to be honest, this iteration of Batman and Robin is kind of what popularized the term dynamic duo. So yeah, I totally dig this Robin. Back at Miss Kitka's apartment after the date, the two start to get romantically involved, and Robert honors Bruce's privacy by turning off the Bat monitor. You see, like, come on, he ain't trying to cat block. So he turns off the monitor so you don't have to see their every move. And while it's switched off, Penguin, Joker, Riddler, and their pirate henchmen, don't know why they need pirate henchmen, Bluebeard, Morgan, and Quench, ambush and kidnap names. I don't know. Ambush and kidnap Bruce and Kitka. And then Robin switches back on the Bat monitor, but it's too late. Once they're in their headquarters, Bruce convinces the villains to untie him, and he takes them down hand to hand. I was very surprised by that. And that was also like very vicious, that fight scene where it's just Bruce.
Oh, that was a big fight scene.
As regular Bruce, like they're breaking furniture and they're looking like they're taking their own pratfalls. I guess it's just old time Hollywood. Like it all looked really, really cool. There wasn't a lot of cuts and stuff. Sometimes they didn't connect, but it didn't really matter. These guys were really throwing themselves against the wall and stuff.
And the best was every time a punch was thrown, you hear the bam, bam, bam,
yeah,
bam. Like
he can't find Kitka because Kitka's Catwoman. He doesn't know this. He can't find her, but he escapes anyway and swims.
Greatest line delivery in the history of anything. I have never cracked up more at hearing Batman say, "I swear I'll kill you. I'll kill you all.
I'll tell you limb from limb." Like, oh my God, Bruce, getting out of control.
Bro, I am crying because it's like I said, like a lot of this stuff is the blueprint. Because that just reminds me of Bruce Wayne in the Batman '89, going, "Come on, you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts."
Right. Right. And that's the thing. That's another instance of them having seemingly Batman dead to rights, but they don't know he's Batman. So Bruce has to do something to get out of the situation and then return back as Batman. And that's literally what he does. He escapes and swims all the way to Commissioner Gordon's, where Robin is waiting. And then they go home, put their clothes back on or their costumes back on and go back to the villain's lair because now they're going to go as the heroes. But knowing the authorities are on their way, Penguin creates a plan to trick them. When Batman and Robin arrive at the lair, they notice a bomb is left for them. Batman does his best to dispose of the device, but everywhere he turns, there's innocent bystanders, including like a family of ducks, a marching band, some nuns, children. So hilarious. Like the bomb, he's doing this for like 5 minutes. Like the wick on this bomb is taking forever for it to blow up. And that's when you get the iconic line, "Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb."
Yep. One of the greatest lines ever.
And ironic,
just can't get rid of a bomb.
Ironically spoken, but he manages to toss the bomb off screen, and Robin thinks that he's dead, but he just pops up. He's like anything that happens off screen, he enters the frame and goes, "Luckily, now he's gonna explain it for us in exposition. Luckily, there was some iron bars here, and that's what shielded me from the explosion, Robin." And again, no one questions it.
And I have to just once again bring up the fact that this stuff is the blueprint because that's the second time that a ridiculous bomb scene has happened in Batman lore, with Robin being able to pick up like a 2-ton mega warhead and like push it into the river outside of the circus.
Yeah, I remember that now.
Forever.
Yeah, because he was gonna blow up the whole circus.
He was gonna blow up the circus, and he lit all four of the entire Grayson family. Literally picks up this giant nuclear warhead on a swinging cable meant for humans. Levitate.
How did they get the bomb? They did show them getting the bomb in there too, though. Yeah, but yeah, like they just keep running into this situation where who's manufacturing these big explosions. Suddenly Penguin shows up in disguise, in a disguise that doesn't really fool anyone, including Batman and Robin, which is very odd because as soon as he shows up, he's like, wah, 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 I'm Commodore Snitlap, and they're like, no, you're not. You're the Penguin. He's like, no, I'm the Commodore, and they're like, we'll see. But first, we're going to take you to our super secret bat cave to find out whether or not you are the Penguin. And I'm like, what is going on here?
And has many people in his bat cave.
Yeah, he gains access to the bat cave, and he's like, I just need to get a drink of water, so I'm just going to step over here. And while he's doing this, Batman's still like, Penguin, we know it's you, so don't try anything tricky. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And as he's saying all this, he's rehydrating his men in the background. And all of a sudden, 5 goons just pop up rehydrated. Seemingly, he dehydrated them at one point. He called them guinea pigs earlier on. We saw one of the best parts of this film is that each villain had like a different plan. Like each villain was coming at this from a different angle. They were all wrong. They all seemingly didn't work, but after every villain would fail, another villain would go, well, we're going to try my plan. And this is Penguin's plan. You put the goons in there, dehydrated, you rehydrate them. They basically kill them. And then you don't have to worry about them moving forward. The issue was, unbeknownst to him, he rehydrates them with hard water that is used to deal with some of the Batmobile's atomic waste. And it causes,
don't know what hard water and soft water is. This movie's just not helping me.
It causes these human beings' molecules to be so unstable that after one hit, they are reduced to antimatter.
Oh, that sounds like PCP.
Are they dead? They're dead, right? They cease to exist.
No, the reason why they would be dead is because in science, no matter what, you can't destroy matter.
Right.
Like particles still count as matter. Like your most minute cells in your body is still matter. You can't actually destroy matter. Right. So when you're antimatter, you cease to literally exist. You are no longer in this realm of existence.
I actually popped because I was like, oh, like antimatter is a callback of sorts, right? Like antimatter is, antimatter. Well, at this time, we wouldn't deal with the Crisis on Infinite Earths. Ultimately, to give us the anti-monitor, antimatter, etc.
That's what I'm saying. This was like the birth of the anti-life equation.
Antimatter. Batman and Robin put the Commodore in the Batmobile. At this point, they think they still know it's Penguin, but they're playing around with the Commodore. At this point of the film and moving forward, everybody's just getting gassed in this. Everybody's getting gassed up. Maybe it was a sign of the times. I don't know. I think, it's probably some like James Bond-ish villain tech, always gassing people. But Penguin basically gasses out the men to steal the Batmobile. But lo and behold, all of this was just a plan by Batman to track the Batmobile, knowing that Penguin was going to bring it back to the hideout. So they used a bat cycle, even disengaging the go-kart portion of it, to get to the Batcopter. Riddler ends up firing one of his skyrocketing missile riddle things, and it hits the Batcopter, causing it to crash. Luckily, Batman and Robin survive because the copter lands on a foam rubber convention, of all things, wholesale.
Which I love. We just have to talk about that for a moment again, because I know the fans are gonna get really annoying with me because all I do is just I see this movie and I find elements that were in other either Batman products or products that were inspired, that this stuff was inspired by. Mm-hmm. This is the second time in a Batman and Riddler-esque movie that the Riddler has shot down Batman.
Yeah. Yeah. And he always getting shot down because he gets shot down in Batman 89 as well by Joker with that big gun or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. With the big gun, he shoots him down.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the bat planes and bat copters are not really all that. I guess they're pretty formidable if you really think of it.
They end up figuring out the riddles, and instead of like taking another vehicle, Batman says that they should run on foot because they're in top peak physical fitness or whatever, which was also pretty hilarious. We find out that the villain's plan is to use Schmidt-Lap's invention to dehydrate the United World's Security Council members. And then with those world leaders gone, they would use the dehydrator to hold the entire world for ransom. I think $1 billion per head of the World Security Council.
They didn't really think that plan through, because just because you're getting rid of the leaders doesn't mean you're getting rid of our military.
Right. But I guess they assumed that no one would be able to call upon the military with the leaders gone.
That's weird, because the Secretary of Defense is not a world leader, but he still is in charge of the military.
Right. We also get some like vague allusions to is it Reagan in this? Nixon? One of those two.
It can't be. If this is 66, then it would be Lyndon Johnson, because
with the two dogs. I thought that was maybe it is Lyndon Johnson.
Well, I think Kennedy was, because Eisenhower was 53 to 61, and Kennedy was only 61 to 63, and his vice president had to take over after he was shot at the grassy knolls. So yeah, 66 would be Lyndon B. Johnson. Yeah,
it is. To 69. Yeah, so maybe to Lyndon B. Johnson, they did some parodying, I guess, of they end up arriving too late. The Security Council is already dehydrated and turned into piles of dust, which were then collected. The villains escape upon gassing again the building's guards and fleeing in their submarine, but not before while the heroes are running, which leads me to this moment where they're running to go stop these villains. Robin says, "Holy marathon, I'm getting a stitch, Batman." And Batman says, of all things, "Let's hope that it's a stitch in time, Robin, that saves the 9 members of the United World Security Council." Very weird. Hilarious, though.
But that's also one of, I once again, tell me that this doesn't remind you of the Dean Lerner scene when he's riding on the bike. The way Dean Lerner is riding on the bike with the background. Yeah. Tell me that's not the Batman and Robin running scene.
There's a lot of that. They'll show the boat and in the actual ocean, and then they'll show them obviously in front of a screen and stuff. That happens a lot with all the vehicles, all the Bat vehicles in this. Our heroes follow the sub in their bat boat, and to avoid torpedoes and missiles, they jam the signals and send out some bat charges. Robin uses a sonic charge weapon to disable Penguin's submarine and forces it to surface. That's when we get a third act worthy fist fight with everybody just fighting on this ship. Notable moments including Batman saving a cat, a sword fight between Batman and Penguin, Robin punching the Joker while they're both swimming around, and Catwoman pushing Batman into the water. Although our dynamic duo come out on top, Batman is heartbroken to find out that his true love, he just met this woman a couple days ago, his true love, Miss Kitka, is actually Catwoman. He finds this out because Miss Kitka / Catwoman trips and falls down, and literally her mask falls off while she's trying to escape.
Of course they did that. Of course they did that angle.
So,
why wouldn't they?
So he realizes that he's been duped, and he sheds a single tear, but he still makes Robin cuff her before calling in the Coast Guard. The real Commodore Schmidt-Lap shows up, and he accidentally breaks the vials containing all of the powdered council members, and then, sneezes on them, mixing and scattering all the dust all together. So now what the hell are we going to do?
What we're going to do is we're going to talk about the fact that this dumb Commodore Schmidt-Lap just literally just dusted all of the world leaders.
Yeah. Thanos
They're
style.
gone. They're never coming back. That's it. It's an antimatter gun. It's like
seemingly, but back at the Batcave cave, using an elaborate filter, Batman and Robin are able to separate all of that mixed dust. And then Robin requests to leave the dust the way it is, though. So they're like, why even separate it? Leave it the way it is. This way, all the races will mix, and then the world will be a better place. If we can pick and choose what parts of the human we keep, what parts we don't.
Who said that? You showed me an interview of there was a Ted Nugent or someone
from
Rush. You showed me an interview of a guy that literally said the world will be a better place if we were all just mixed.
Oh,
coffee babies.
It was Lemmy from Motorhead.
Lemmy from Motorhead just wanted the world to be coffee babies.
We should all be coffee babies. But yeah, Dick Grayson's like, if we have a chance now, we can actually mix up all this stuff, and there'll be obviously less overt racism.
So
because
Dick Grayson ends racism.
No, because his request is denied. Batman says mortals shouldn't tamper in these matters, so they decide that they're not going to do that. So they keep them perfectly separated as is, and they rehydrate them. But funnily enough, they get the mixed race kind of thing anyway, because somehow, some way, when they're rehydrated, they're not speaking the language that they're from the country that they're from. Everyone's speaking a different language. So everyone's arguing in all these foreign languages and not the language that they know or that they speak. But Batman doesn't really care. He's like open and shut case. And he says that he hopes that these mixing of the minds would do more good than harm. That's what, even though obviously people are not in their right bodies or in their right minds. And then he's like, let's leave inconspicuously. And by that, he means climb out of the window and rappel down the side of the building. We see all the countries of the United Nations rejoice because, everyone's back to being rehydrated, but they're kind of baffled because of everybody speaking different languages. As the world celebrates that success, Batman and Robin climb out of the window of the United World building into an uncertain future. And that is the end of Batman, the movie, 1966. We can talk legacy. Like I said, again, both actors seemingly were typecasted after the fact. One of my favorite little inside jokes is that Adam West was cast in Batman the Animated Series in the Grey Ghost storyline, where the Grey Ghost was a villain who was a former TV star and couldn't get past the shadow of that Grey Ghost character that they created, which is pretty interesting. They've got sequels, like Return of the Caped Crusaders uses Adam West and Burt Ward's voice acting to reprise this dynamic duo, and some of the other villains are able to stop by as well. And I think they also did like a Two-Face movie not too long ago with some of these characters as well. But what's most interesting is people credit Batman 66 and its lightheartedness, the bright night, if you will, to the reason as to why Batman went so edgy after the fact. Frank Miller ends up creating Dark Knight Returns, puts Batman in all black. That's when you start with the whole, there's 215 bones in the human body, and I know how to break every single one. You get that really surgical, wartime, militant soldier Batman with the rifle and all that kind of stuff. You get that from Frank Miller's Dark Knight. Years later, Batman 89, completely black from head to toe, besides a yellow emblem and a yellow belt. And the edginess that has come with Batman ever since is seemingly placed on the foot of this and its show.
Oh, look at Death in the Family. They literally killed off Robin.
Yeah, all of this is said
in that area of mindset.
All of this is said to be a response to comic readers hating this version of Batman. And I think, like I said, eventually, I think, but the thing is, I think now, 10 years from now, we will end up appreciating Jared Leto's Joker. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be like one of those kind of deals where we need some distance from it, and it can't be the most important thing going on in our lives right now. And at one point, you got to assume that some of these readers, Batman was the most important thing going on in their lives. So to have this version come out might have just pissed them off right off the edge.
I can understand where it would piss people off. Like even now to this day at our age in 2021, me, you, Yogi, Jarvis, Greg, we're seeing characters that we have these emotional ties to from the comics that get duped in their theatrical debuts and their TV show debuts. Like look what's going on with Godspeed right now on Flash,
Exactly.
So it happens. But as someone that has literally been thrusted upon into the beautiful world of Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, I look at this and I see genius. I see people that cared so much that they wanted it to be subtly campy. Like it's in your face campy, but they played it straight. That is a very important thing to know, that they were on set, the director, the producer, everybody was on set saying, say this dialogue like you mean it, like you believe it, like in real life, a real person would say this.
Yeah.
And they
And as serious as you can, which makes it, like you said, even more comedic. And yeah, there is a level of intelligence there. I'm glad I saw it. I probably, when I get bored, I'm gonna start to try to watch some of that series just to see some of the ridiculous.
Oh no, I think I'm gonna end up
nature
on
of it
once
all.
in a while. I'm just gonna throw on an episode, like, you know, like I'll throw on something while I shower, like, because it's too good. It really it's one of those films. I start calling things now the Superman 4 effect. I went into this movie knowing, oh, this is gonna be shit. This is just gonna be the campiest of campy. Like, I know all the pop culture references, I know all of the criticism towards it, and I go in finding not only an actually intelligent, dark story, but it's also Cold War propaganda, very campy, and made from a level of passion. Christopher Reeves was passionate about Superman 4.
Yeah.
The same way these people are passionate about this show and movie.
Yeah, like the cheesiness isn't enough to knock it down a grade. Because
Exactly.
the cheesiness is an aesthetic that they're using. They're using the cheesiness. Yeah. It's an aesthetic that they've chosen. They don't just happen to fall into cheesiness. All the cheesiness is written into the story. So yeah, I think that totally works. And that, you know, like we covered Loki last week and the week before, then Black Widow. Now this. All fun things. Thank you for enjoying the fun portion of the Major Issues podcast. Next week, when we return, we will be covering Suicide Squad, the Jared Leto version, the introduction of cinematic Harley Quinn, and more, and all of that. Yeah, we'll get to that. But thank you guys for listening so much for this episode. It was fun tackling this 1966 Batman on the 55th anniversary. This will come out on the 28th, but the actual film came out on the 30th. So just days away from this 55th anniversary. And I wouldn't be surprised if
so it's July 30th, 1966.
Yes. Yeah.
Nice.
So I wouldn't be surprised if like all of a sudden you start seeing a bunch of different people covering this film, going back, talking about what they like and what they don't like. But again, I think it was ahead of its time.
100%. I'm calling it right now. Next week, Caravan of Garbage. It's gonna end. It'll end up on the Caravan of Garbage next week. And if it ends up on Caravan of Garbage, everybody, I called it. I know my boys. I called it.
We'll see. But the only way to see is to make sure that you're here every single week listening to the Major Issues podcast. We've come out every Wednesday. Knock on vibranium. You know, we have not missed a single week in almost 190 weeks at this point.
Almost 200 episodes consecutive.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for listening and sharing and telling a friend. This is how we've been able to grow this podcast and how we were able to grow to a point of getting our own website, comicbookclique.com, which is where all of our merchandise exists. All the merchandise designed by myself, all the articles written by me and other members of the Clique, including Dan the Comic Man here. We're having a lot of fun over there, just creating original content, whether it be articles, whether it be merchandise, or whether it be episodes of the Major Issues podcast. Every single episode is available at comicbookclique.com. So that's over 180 hours right there of content talking about all things comic books. So you guys can go right there. But let's say you guys already listen to podcasts. Maybe you're a big Joe Rogan fan and you don't want to get another podcast app. Luckily, we're available wherever podcasts are found. That's Podbean, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, the Apple Podcast app, TuneFind, YouTube, Spotify. We are everywhere. And we've started implementing a new bit of content where we are putting these full episodes up with some video and visuals up on YouTube. So if you are doing laundry or, you know, doing something around the house and you just want to hear us in the background, you can go there to our YouTube channel and listen there. Main thing we want you guys to do is be able to communicate with us. Tell us what you like and what you don't. We want to hear about defend Suicide Squad before next week. We'll read your take right here on air. And you can do so by going to facebook.com/comicbookclique, Instagram at comicbookclique, or you can use the hashtag comicbookclique to talk about the newest, hottest, latest, and greatest things to come to comic books and comic book media. We're also at Major Issues CBC on Twitter, sharing the dankest memes, podcast schedules, and comic book news as we see it. As we see it, we print it, and we've been having some really, really cool engagement and traffic across all of our social media. As you know, all those links are in the show notes, as well as the link to help us monetarily. You can help us keep the lights on here by going to patreon.com/CBC Clubhouse and just giving us for as little as a dime a day, 30 cents or $3 a month. You can help keep the lights on here, keep us well fed. it's getting harder and harder to read all this, watch all this. You know, we're
completely malnourished at this point. So I think people just help me out. Go to the Patreon. Like a dime a day can literally get me a piece of candy, and that's just enough to settle my stomach. Ooh, piece of candy.
No, totally. And yeah, we thank you guys for all the support. If you guys can, for, like I said, $3 a month, we can be your subscription service, giving you exclusive content and all things here at Comic Book Clique. We got some big things coming up and coming your way, so make sure that you are paying attention to all of our socials and the Major Issues podcast. Lastly, for completely free, you know it's free? Word of mouth is free. You telling other people about the Major Issues podcast is free. You telling people about our fun memes on our social media, all of that's free. And we would love for you to do that. Tell a friend, or why don't you rate and review us on iTunes? It's the quickest way for us to grow as podcasters and find out what you like and what you don't. If we get 5 stars, we'll be recommended to new listeners, which will grow our audience even bigger, possibly grow our Patreons even bigger, our support even bigger, and the headquarters even bigger.
We don't ask for much. Just like. You know what? At this point, don't even comment. Just like and subscribe. You don't have to leave a comment. I know how people are with, very nervous and very off-putted to try and email someone, reach out. Like, I know I get very scared when I want to reach out to YouTubers I like. So just leave that like, leave that subscribe, and we're all friends in this. We're all friends together.
Totally. So yeah, even when you leave a review on iTunes, you don't got to put your name. You can put whatever name you want. You don't even have to make an excuse as to why you gave us 5 stars. You just give us the stars and leave it be at that. Who do you have to explain yourself to? Nobody. So don't even worry about it. But yeah, next week will be Suicide Squad, and after that, The Suicide Squad, and after that, I don't know, because we have to go back to the schedule and figure out what we're gonna do for the fall of 2021. We got some big things coming: Stargirl, Titans, Doom Patrol, Umbrella Academy, Shang-Chi, Spider-Man, Eternals, The Boys, all this stuff coming, and hopefully we'll be able to cover it right alongside you guys. Thank you so much. Like I said, like, share, and subscribe. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Get on us on all social media and help us on Patreon if you can. But my name is George Serrano, aka The Don.
I am Dan, the comic book man.
And this has been our Batman 66, or Batman the movie, recap and review. And remember, whether you call yourself the Bright Knight or the Dark Knight, or it's just been a long night, whether you're a Boy Wonder or a Catwoman, the question is the same. Will your favorite podcasters return next week with new content? Will the Don still hate the Suicide Squad even though it won an Oscar? Is there anything worse than Jared Leto's Joker? Find out next week. Same Clique time, same Clique channel. And remember, you, yes you, are worthy, old chum.